focus to the other story we are tracking. What many see as layoff, I see as a time off. Now, this is what Byju's CEO, Byju Raveendran, has written in a letter to his sacked employees. It was what many would call an emotional farewell note. Raveendran apologized to his employees. He even admitted that the layoffs were not so smooth. All the optics were right. But that's the only thing that was right about this entire situation. Byjus is sacking 5% of the company's 50,000 employees. That means 2,500 people will lose their jobs by March next year. The layoffs have already begun. About 100 employees were already fired from its media unit division in Kerala. Now understand this. This is the largest edtech company in India that we are talking about. It is valued at over 1.8 lakh crore rupees. Founded in 2015, the Decon has now grown exponentially in the last few years. Until last year, it seems to have been a difficult one for Byjus. Why? Because the CEO has blamed external macroeconomic factors, slow funding or even high interest rates. But we look into this and there is no one reason that we could find. The first one is the pandemic, of course. People are tired of the screen. Offline classes are starting again, so there have been some loss of clientele. But the other is Byju's business model. The edtech company reported a loss of over 4,500 crores in 2021. This makes it the biggest loss-making startup in the country. Many blame it on the recent acquisitions. Others say it was the way Byju's grew in the last few years. Even its CEO talked about inefficiencies and redundancies in the letter. So can the edtech giant weather the winds of change in the industry, or will India's edtech bubble burst soon? That is a question that we are putting to our guests who are joining us this evening. Harinder Singh Tomar is founder and CEO of Adacraft Inc. and Rituparna Chakraborty is the co-founder and executive vice president of Team Lease. Thank you both for being here. Rituparna, can I quickly come to you first? Help me understand this. Isn't Byju's the chief sponsor of the Indian cricket team right now? When you're spending that much money on cricket, I mean, I know you're smiling, but this was the first thing that struck me, that you have all the money in the world to spend on a World Cup and on the Indian cricket team, and then you need to sack 2,500 of your people. What's going wrong?
So I first and foremost, thanks so much for having me on this show. I think it's a very difficult question. I don't think it has a straightforward answer. So I think in case of Byju, clearly it's a case of pursuing growth at a pace which is far exceeds one's ability to turn profitable. And finally, at some point or the other, because it's an organization which is being funded by, there's a lot of external money which has gone into making Byju what it is. So finally, there is a time when you will have to show return. So essentially, bottom line concerns will kick in at some point, right? So I think I don't think there is, I can call this as a problem in the edtech model. I think that would be too far-fetched to say that there is something going wrong in the edtech. It's about an organization's ability to pace and sustain growth at a manner in which it carries the entire organization along, it ensures profitability. And I think it's pitiful because Byju has essentially got the entire world to notice us in the edtech space, so due credit to them. However, it's an important lesson in terms of there's some certain things that you need not do, certain things you should pace yourself right around. And it's unfortunate what's happening. And I'm sure people within the organizations are not, and the letter itself gives me a sense that people within the organizations are also remorseful about what's happening. But you're running an organization finally. If you realize that there is a mistake and there is the path that they're following there has to be a recourse, there has to be corrections. One has to do it no matter how painful it is. So I know it's painful for the organization, but I think it was somewhere inevitable. So honestly, their sponsorship with the Indian cricket team, I can't talk about. But yes, it is an irony to be honest.
It is an irony. That's what I thought. Harendra, what do you make of the letter, first of all? I mean, one of the things that has made headlines now is the one line he says, what you see as a, layoff, I'm seeing as time off. I mean, really?
So, Shreya, I would say, the basic problem, we work with almost all ag tech companies from India. We work with them. So the basic problem which we are seeing with Indian ag tech companies, they are spending a lot of money on marketing, but they do not consider upgrading their product. So like 4 or 5 companies are selling the same product and they are spending uh, money on acquiring the new customers. And then, what they do, they acquire some, they competitor, and then they and their competitors are having the same customers. So that's the first problem. When they acquire same their competitors, so the problem, like, they have the job duplications, like their sales team, their production. So that is the reason, for doing the same task, they are having 3 or 4 type of employees. So that's the biggest challenge with the Indian ag tech companies. And the second problem is, they are having very not up to that product. Then second problem is, the product cost. If you look at the product cost of Byjus, it starts from 60,000 to 1,90,000 rupees for a single subscription. Okay, when people in India are mostly investing a lot of money in their child education, then they have to invest that money. Then third problem is that their marketing budget. They are spending, huge budget on marketing. If you'll see that Byjus is the first Indian company who is sponsoring FIBA. If you look at the other two companies, like Kia Motors is there, then Qatar Airways is there. So the last year revenue of Qatar Airways is like 1 lakh crore rupees, and the Kia is having 4 lakh crore rupees of revenue. If you look at the revenue of Byjus, they are having just 2,500 crore rupees. So that is again the problem. You are investing more than, your 30%, 40% of the budget you are investing on the marketing, where all the ag tech they are spending on acquiring the single user. So then again, it increases the cost of acquiring one customer. The fourth problem with Byjus, which I see, is that very negative sentiment. People, those who are buying the subscription, they are not, they are not again considering buy that subscription. So that's the biggest problem. So what I believe, like Byjus need to look on the very fundamental, like business fundamentals. Like first, they should change the revenue profit, and then second, they should focus on, they should focus more on the customer rather than focusing more on the marketing and acquiring the new customer. So that's my take on this.
Okay. All right. So, Rituparna, before we end this chat, for years, India's edtech industry has had a dream run. They've churned out several unicorns in the last few years. But recent layoffs have been a worrying trend. Do you see these companies now needing to change their business model to deal with the shifting trends? Do you see this cycle of sackings continue, not just for Byjus, but for others as well?
So Shreya, here is the thing. I think we all owe a lot to this initial lot of edtech startups. They have made us realize about possibilities that edtech can do in this country, and hence we should give them due credit. Has there been precedence of the tsunami of edtech before? No. So it's quite obvious that there would be some mistakes that happen down the line. But the good thing is that we are living in a time where we are encouraging startups. Startups has an ecosystem where they feel that they can come and express themselves, they can experiment. And from these experiments, we're also learning much faster. So yes, there are important learnings that are coming to the forefront. And I'm sure I don't consider this as a encouragement. I don't consider this as a doom and gloom scenario for the edtech. But it's essentially telling us how we can do this job better. So I personally also, I don't think every edtech is going through the same situation. Like we ourselves have a team leads has an edtech business, and we know how we are pacing ourselves. We're here for the long haul. The thing that every startup, especially in the edtech space, need to bear in mind is that growth at any cost, that cost can sometimes be very expensive. So growth is important, but something which can be sustained, and there is a sustained roadmap towards profitability is probably the best way, because the opportunity or the addressable market in edtech is infinite. So it's not that there is a rush that it needs to be achieved. And yes, there is a little bit of this unicorn buzz phenomena, which sometimes can be a big distraction. I think the opportunity exists. I think if organizations pace themselves towards making use of this opportunity by making the right choices, and like my Duke panelist rightly pointed out, that let's be wise about the fund and the capital. The way we utilize capital and where we are using it, whether it's on the product side, whether it's in building the right kind of talent, maybe that's the much better way than the way some of the edtechs has gone in the recent times. So I actually think that it's upsetting at the moment, but I think edtech is still going to flourish. It's a big opportunity, and I don't think we should paint everyone with the same brush.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Rituparna, for joining us, and Harinder for joining us, and putting these firings in context for us. Thank you so much. We are shifting our